What's up, y'all, and welcome into the Jack Vita Show. I'm your host, as always, Jack Vita. Alongside today, we've got the play-by-play man for the Aberdeen Ironbirds, Mr. Michael Marcantonini. Welcome back to the program, my friend.
Hey, what's up, Jack? Thanks for having me back, man. Always fun talking ball with you. Let's get it going.
Of course, you and I previewed the season before the season started. Actually, it's probably a couple days into the season. Thinking back, it was right at the end of spring training. And today we have reached the trade deadline. It's hard to believe. It's August 4th at the time of this recording. We're going to talk trade deadline, winners and losers, some of the biggest moves from the deadline, and how it's going to impact these playoff races that are very much tightening up. These things are getting really, really interesting. So if you guys are new to this program and you don't subscribe, go ahead and hit subscribe here on YouTube. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts are found. Make sure you guys hit subscribe. You won't want to miss out on all the content that we have. And then I'm also on social media at Jack Vita Show on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. We are going to kick things off. Michael, who won the deadline? Give me the top team that comes to mind.
Ooh, the top team. I think in terms of just big league talent acquired, and also given the current situation that they're in, I think it's hard to say anybody besides the San Diego Padres. I mean, the Padres legitimately did everything that, as a Padres fan, you'd want them to. Like, they addressed all their needs. They traded from a farm system that wasn't necessarily that deep in the sport. They gave up a lot of their top prospects, but it wasn't the most highly ranked farm system. So in terms of prospects traded away, you give up a guy like Leo DeVries, who's one of the game's best prospects. But other than that, I think it's worth what they're trying to do. Go after a World Series, take down the Dodgers, win the division, and win it all. So I think it's hard to put anybody besides the Padres on top.
Padres are the big winners from this deadline. Not only do they acquire Mason Miller, who they have for the next 4.5 years, we'll talk about that. They also get Ryan O'Hearn. They also get Ramon Laureano. They also get JP Sears to shore up that rotation. They got Nestore Cortes, Freddy Fermin at catcher. So they brought in a whole new roster. They beefed up probably 20% of their roster here at the deadline. And I picked this club to win the World Series, and we had this conversation 4 months ago. And I believe if it wasn't you, it may have been in my conversations with other people. It was like, well, the Padres don't have a lot of depth. That was a big knock on this club. They lost some key guys from last year, and I agreed with that coming into the season. But what did I say? I said Preller is going to address those needs at the deadline. He did all of that and then some.
Yeah, he absolutely did. I mean, there are a lot of other contenders around the league, whether it's NL or AL, where they had a couple holes and they just chose not to fill them. Whether it was maybe they are just trusting what they have with their current club, maybe they're getting some guys back from injuries or whatever, weren't aggressive enough. There were holes that didn't get filled on a lot of other big time contenders that have World Series aspirations. Whereas AJ Preller and the Padres, look, they knew they had a massive hole in left field. It had been an issue for them all season. Even going into the season, they knew that left field was going to be an issue. They go out and get Ramon Laureano, who has absolutely mashed left-handed pitching this season, but also pretty consistently throughout his career. Excellent defender. So you've got a guy who can play all three outfield positions, manning, arguably the easiest of the three outfield positions. So defensively, they're solid there. They also get Ryan O'Hearn, a big lefty bat, a power bat in that trade. And then you mentioned Mason Miller, one of the top three probably closers in the game right now, at least top five, regardless of what ranking system that you're looking at or whose list you're looking at. So they got impact big leaguers that filled specific needs, and I think that's what's most important.
You bring up Laureano. I got a text from a scout the other day who pointed out to me that Laureano has a higher OPS than Machado. Ryan O'Hearn has a higher OPS than Tatis. And there was a lot of talk about how Luis Robert was this crown jewel or this big get at the deadline. Laureano has, he pointed out, significantly outplayed Robert. And look at the club option for next year. Robert's like a $20 million. Laureano's $6.5 million.
Yeah, yeah, and I think with the calculations that front offices use nowadays, I think basically one win above replacement translate to somewhere between $8 and $10 million. So you pick up that that club option at 6.5 million for the production that you're going to get out of him on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. That's a huge get. So this wasn't just about this season; it was about having him for next year as well to fill a need. But I love the aggressiveness from the Padres, knowing that they have had an up and down season. They got out of the gates really hot, then they really scuffled, but there are pieces in place to compete for a division title and a World Series, and now they've only upgraded in all areas and given themselves an opportunity to overtake a Dodgers team that has a lot of issues. Let's be honest. Like with as much depth as the Dodgers have and as much star power as there is, I mean, the starting pitching is a huge question mark because of all the injuries. And even when guys come back, who knows what version of those guys they're going to get. And then offensively, the Dodgers haven't been as prolific as they were last year. I mean, Mookie Betts has really struggled this year. Uh, Freddie Freeman, although he has continued to produce and he's a stud, he's still dealing with that lingering ankle issue. Maybe that's an issue down the road. So the Padres have put themselves in a really good position to not just overtake the Dodgers, but really overtake, the rest of the league as like, hey, we're coming for you guys.
I'm going to give you my bold prediction right here. I didn't think I'd be doing this 5 minutes into the show, but I am telling you on this day, August 4th, 2025, the San Diego Padres, who are 3 games out of first place, will surpass the Los Angeles Dodgers. I picked them to win the World Series. Now I'm picking them to win the NL West. And it's a combination of the way that the Padres address their needs, the fact that the Dodgers are sputtering, and the fact that the Dodgers were rather quiet on deadline day. And I thought that they really could have added a little length to their lineup and to their pitching staff as well.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers could have swung a little bit bigger. I know they've got a lot of pieces in place and guys are coming back from injuries, but I think they had the prospect capital and, the money that could have been needed to move in any deal to bring in one of the best relievers in baseball. A lot of top relievers across baseball got moved at the deadline. The Dodgers easily could have had one of those guys if they wanted to. They also could have done what they needed to do to get another impact bat in there. Again, not that many holes in that lineup, but they could have done a little bit more. They chose not to, and we'll see how that plays out moving forward.
Now, of course, this Mason Miller trade. This is something that I don't think many people knew that he was even available. The Padres blew the A's away with whatever offer that they gave them, which included Leo DeVries, who's the number 3 prospect in all of baseball, and Braden Nett was someone who was in both these guys were in the fall league the last 2 years. You and I got a chance to watch DeVries. I saw Nett the year before. They include a couple other right-handed pitchers in this deal. DeVries, I think it's worth noting, however, because a lot of people are. This is a move that's under a lot of scrutiny. Actually, let me get your thoughts on this first. What do you think? Too much? Too big of a price to pay?
I think when you look at it as just the fact that the Padres gave up their best prospect and one of the best prospects in the sport in any trade, you're like, well, that's a lot to do. Like a lot of teams find ways to not give up their number one prospect in trade. They'll be like, everybody else is on the table, but this guy. Let's make it work that way. But then when you look at the fact that Mason Miller is easily a top 5 closer, I said probably top 3 in the game, a high leverage reliever, regardless of what role he fills with San Diego, whether it's the 8th or ninth or whatever. But you also get 4.5 years of control for him. I mean, it's incredible when you can get a guy that's that dominant at 26 years old and then have him under that much club control moving forward. And if they do moving forward decide to try to stretch him out and make him a starting pitcher, then I think the value of that trade increases because starting pitching is so expensive in Major League Baseball now. To have an elite starting pitcher, like if you're going to go after one on a free agent market, it's $35+ million a year easily. So if you can have a guy who's cost controlled, even with the arbitration money that he can make over the next few years, I think it's a great gamble. And yeah, okay, maybe Leo DeVries ends up being a stud, but I think it's a worthy gamble because of the fact that they're in a pennant race right now, and they want to be the next few years, and they've got him under control for that. So I was, when I saw the deal, a little surprised that they gave up DeVries, but it wasn't one of those where I'm like, man, they're going to regret that, because I think they might have regretted it if they didn't go after Mason Miller when they knew they had a chance.
You know what this indicates to me is that I think, and I could be wrong on this, but my read on this is there may be a disparity between how the San Diego Padres view Leo DeVries and how MLB Pipeline and other rival scouts view him, because he is the number 3 overall prospect in baseball, and he's a stud, and I think he's going to be a really good player someday. But this is his second year in minor league baseball. He's batted 240 as a minor league baseball player. This season, he batted 245 in Fort Wayne, high A. Last year in the fall league, he batted 179. He batted 237 last season in A ball. So I don't know. Maybe they're not sold on his hit tool. And we've seen Preller make a lot of these moves. Some, hey, they probably would love to have James Wood right now. They're probably some guy, C.J. Abrams. There are guys that they traded, Mackenzie Gore. But there are other guys that they traded that haven't panned out. This is the name of the game with prospects. You never really know what they're going to turn into. And the fact of the matter is that these types of prospects are less valuable to the Padres as an organization as the top prospects may be in other organizations, because this is a testament to what Logan White and AJ Preller and their scouting department that they oversee, their ability to continue to sign these guys and draft these guys. So, okay, they traded James Wood, but guess what? They drafted Jackson Merrill, and they developed him, and he turned into a stud. So I think their thought process is, we might trade this guy. We'll just go find another Leo DeVries.
Yeah, I mean, the organizations that draft well and do a great job with making moves internationally, signing players, they continually put themselves in a position to trade from that depth year after year. Okay, so you trade from a core group of prospects. Yeah, like you said, you can go replenish them if you're going after the right guys. Like if you hit on draft picks, if you hit on signings, and that's what the Padres have done. I mean, with DeVries, like this is not a guy who's going to hit 30 to 40 home runs as a big league shortstop. Like that's not his skill set.
Yeah.
He's not, a
He's not
power
close
hitter.
to the big leagues either.
Right.
He's only 18 years old. He's in
Right.
high A.
So you figure even if the best case scenario, he gets to the big leagues at like 2021. I mean, that's still 2 or 3 postseason runs away. And the Padres have a chance to win one, maybe multiple World Series in that span. So if he can't help you within the next year, then go get established big leaguers who can. And they did that with Miller and JP Sears.
The strategy here, too, is, do I love their starting rotation? It's not the staff. Like, I love the Milwaukee Brewers rotation. I love their pitching. And I like the Phillies pitching as well. That's another team that's got great pitching with starting pitching. But what we're seeing here is it seemed that the asking price on the starting pitching market was too high. It was where, again, a disparity between where the teams that were selling those pieces and the teams that were trying to add to starting pitching. And there wasn't a bona fide ace on the market. There wasn't a guy that you were like, that's a guy I want to trust right now in a postseason series. Zach Gallen, he's not having a very good year. Sandy Alcantara, not having a very good year. Merrill Kelly, not the greatest of years. He's not that kind of level top ace pitcher. He's a really good pitcher. And so I think you saw the Padres, the Mets, the Phillies looking to add and go into this bullpenning direction. And last year, the Padres, this is what they did against the Dodgers, and it almost worked. And now their bullpen's even better.
Yeah, I mean, they plugged a lot of holes. I mean, that's what it comes down to at the deadline. Like, if you have holes and you're serious about winning a World Series, you have to fill a majority of those holes. A lot of teams can't fill all of them. I mean, you can try. I mean, the Padres think they have. You look at a team like the Yankees. They tried to fill all of their holes, but early on it looks like they still have some. So there are
Yeah.
contenders across the sport that you can see which contenders are separating themselves from the other contenders, because this was a year where there were more buyers than sellers. But you got to feel after that crazy 48-hour period, July 30th and then July 31st, which teams were like, all right, like we don't want to just win games, we want to win it all.
Yeah. And it's case by case because there are certain organizations that if you have a Leo DeVries, you're probably not trading him because for one, you might need to have those homegrown stars based on where you're at with your flexibility financially. Obviously, those players are cheap and controllable, but you also might not be very good at finding those players continuously. So those become more untouchable. But then you've got, in the case of the Yankees, as you mentioned, this refusal to trade prospects. And aside from Judge, how many prospects have they had come up over the last 7, 8 years that have been studs? There's been a lot of Anthony Volpe and Oswaldo Cabrera and a lot of guys who are they're fine, but they're not the aircraft carrier type players they were hoping they would be.
Right, and you have to look at what the Yankees have done over the last couple decades and look at the fact that, like, okay, Judge is trending towards becoming the greatest right-handed hitter in baseball history. Like, that's the trajectory he's on. But after that, like, every guy who was labeled a prospect or somebody in the minor leagues who they thought was going to contribute in a big way to the big league team, like, there have not been many of them at all, but especially on the position player side. So I think teams have to look at that as an example of, all right, like, if we've got prospects that other teams want and we're trying to bring big leaguers back, like, it's not that much of a risk to trade lottery ticket type minor leaguers for established big leaguers who can contribute now and help you win games. Like, um, it's such a big tug of war. Like, I'm sure mentally, like, running a front office and being in a front office, like, how can we balance still going after it and being all in now, but making sure we don't deplete our resources and our talent pipeline moving forward. But at some point, you got to look at it like a guy like Dave Dombrowski looks at it as, like, okay,
Yeah.
they're prospects. Like, let's trade them. Let's go get big leaguers. He's done that every stop he's been. And, not just this year with the Phillies, but he's gone after it, and it's worked out in a lot of different ways.
There have been so many guys that Dave Dombrowski has traded prospects wise that if you fast forward 20 years, like let's say we told somebody about, yeah, Dave Dombrowski got Miguel Cabrera. And Dontrell Willis, his name isn't going to carry the same kind of weight to the kids these days. But he got Miguel Cabrera. That's a first ballot Hall of Famer right there.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, oh my gosh, what'd he give up for him? I think the best player in that trade was Andrew Miller. And I couldn't tell you who else was in that trade.
Right. And Andrew Miller didn't become the Andrew Miller we all know until much later on.
Until he became a reliever. They were trying to make him a starter early in his career.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that we're seeing more and more now that, like, with increased prospect coverage across baseball, whether it's MLB Pipeline, Baseball America, all the other outlets that do these prospect rankings, like, everybody's looking for that updated ranking. Oh, after the draft, okay, what's the team's updated prospect ranking? Like, I call games in minor league baseball. I've been doing it for 6 years now, and I'm in my third year with the Ironbirds. Like, I'll look at prospect rankings, but it's kind of just to provide context on where an organization is. It's not like the be all and end all. Like, oh, this is the organization's number 4 prospect. Like, he's going to be a
Right.
better big
Yeah.
leaguer than a guy that's not even ranked on prospect lists right now. Like, I think a little bit too much attention gets put on rankings and just the term prospect. Like, that's cool and I get it, but we need to put more of an emphasis on, like, oh, you're getting a contributing big leaguer to help you win big league games right now.
I think there's a lot of similarity between what Philly and San Diego has done over the last couple of years. Maybe not entirely through free agency, although there are some parallels there. I mean, San Diego signed Machado at the same time the Phillies signed Bryce Harper, but the same kind of approach from their executives of you know what? We trust our farm system. We're going to replace these prospects that we trade, and we're going to ship them out, and we're not going to worry about what they become. And I think we've seen that with Dombrowski and Philly, and they've been pretty good at drafting too. Both these teams tend to take high school player with they pick in the late 20s, and they end up finding some gems there that other teams are overlooking, such as Jackson Merrill, such as Andrew Painter, who we got to see last year in the fall league. The Phillies made a big move. They traded two top 100s in Eduardo Tate and Mick Abel. Mick Abel was a guy who, I feel like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, the Philly fans were talking about this future rotation with Abel and Painter, and they shipped him out of town to get Joey Duran to just beef up that bullpen again, to go for it right now. What'd you think of that move?
I thought it was an excellent move. I think in terms of the quality of a player they brought back, I think it was arguably the best move for a pitcher at the deadline. I know we spent a lot of time talking about the Mason Miller trade with San Diego and the A's, but Duran is just elite out of the back end of the bullpen. I mean, just the other day throwing almost half or more of his pitches 101 plus with movement. Like everything moves. He's not just chucking straight fastballs towards the plate. Like everything's got bite or tail on it, and he's really tough to hit, and it doesn't have to just rely on strikeouts. He's around the zone. And when you get a guy who has pitched at the back end of a bullpen and just kind of like as soon as he jogs out of the bullpen, like he's got this aura around him. It's intimidating. So when you bring in that caliber of a back end bullpen arm, it doesn't really matter what you give up. The Phillies have a really small window right now to win a World Series. You figure with the core that they have right now. I mean, it's a core of a lot of guys that are over 30, some in their mid 30s, and some guys towards the end of their contracts with the team. Talking about Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos. I mean, you got Harper and Turner signed long term. Wheeler has a couple more years of probably elite. The Zach Wheeler that we've come to know. So like they've got to go after it now. Mick Abel may become a top of the rotation starter within the next 2 or 3 years, but it doesn't matter because he's not that right now. And Eduardo Tait could have been the Phillies catcher of the future post JT Realmuto, but the Phillies are in a position where they've got to worry about that later. Like they've got to worry about winning it all right now, and they went after one of the game's best relievers. So I think it's easily a top 2 or 3 pitcher trade from the deadline, and you can argue that it's the best considering that they had such a big need at the back end and they just filled it.
I think you nailed that, Michael. I like what they did, and again, coming back to this thing with prospects, sometimes it's a matter of like where are these guys even going to fit? If you look at like long-term plans too, like how are you going to get these guys up? Because I think the Cubs were one of the big kind of losers of the deadline. The Cubs have a problem right now where they have a lot of their best prospects in AAA, but they're not promoting them because they don't see a fit for them on the big league club. In some cases, I don't fully understand it. Owen Casey's played about 200 minor league game or AAA games at this point, which is unheard of for a prospect of his magnitude. He's doing extremely well, and I think his bat would really help a Cubs offense right now that has been sliding after the All-Star break. Seiya Suzuki's in a big slump. Kyle Tucker's in a big slump. Ian Happ really hasn't given him much of anything this year. Why not give Owen Casey a call-up if you're not going to trade him? And then you've got some other guys such as Moises Ballesteros, where we got to see, again, another guy we saw at the Fall League last year. Love the hit tool. Not a big power bat. He's about 5'6". He's a stocky gentleman. There really isn't a position for him other than catcher, and there have been a lot of concerns about his catching ability. So it's kind of like, what do you do there? He's a DH, but you don't have room for him to DH on your big league club. You're not using him as a bench piece. James Trianto, similar thing. Love James's hit tool. He's a second baseman. Where is he going to play in that infield with Matt Shaw, Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson? So the Cubs are in a weird spot where they had a handful of guys that they could potentially trade. Kevin Alcantara, another one. Did not trade any of them. Had serious pitching needs that they needed to address. Did not address those needs. Now, I'm not saying that they should overpay and package all those prospects because I do think that someone like Casey is someone you should probably hold on to, especially because Kyle Tucker may not re-sign with the organization. So there's going to be a real opportunity for someone to potentially fit into that role of corner outfield next year. And especially, again, Ian Happ's not giving you much of anything, and he's got one more year after on his contract after this year. So I'm not saying, hey, you got to overpay. But at the same time, the question is, what is your plan? What are you going to do with all these guys who are in AAA, who are attractive trade chips? And there was a report that came out the Cubs were not willing to part ways with Moises Ballesteros. Where's he going to play?
Yeah, but the Ballesteros report, that's the one that sticks with me because he's a guy that I think you should have considered expendable in a trade if you're the Cubs because of what you just mentioned, the glaring issue that defensively there just might not be an everyday position for him at the big league level. Now, to be a full-time DH or even a guy who splits time between DH and first base in the big leagues, like you absolutely have to hit. Like, I mean, it has to be a 30-plus homer guy, a 100-plus RBI guy, a guy who's weighted runs created plus or OPS plus is consistently above average. Like to have to give up, the defense that you could get from somebody else somewhere, like the DH/first baseman type in the big leagues, they have to hit. That's just how it is these days. So if he can't play there, be hit enough to do that, and he's not great enough defensively as a catcher, use him as bait to go after a top tier starting pitcher, or not even necessarily an ace, a number one guy, maybe even a 2 or 3 to just make your rotation deeper, or do something else. Use him in a package to bring in a bat that helps you somewhere. I don't know, maybe corner, left field or third base, and then you've got the opportunity to move Matt Shaw and some other guys around a little bit. But yeah, that's tough. Like the Cubs have to be thinking like, all right, we trust the group we have now, so that's why we only made some marginal upgrades elsewhere. They also have to be thinking like, all right, this offseason, this is when we cash in our trade chips. I don't know, but it's tough to look at it that way, thinking about the offseason when Kyle Tucker might not be back after this year,
Yeah.
and you've got a team that could win it all now. I mean, that's what it just keeps coming back to that during trade season. Like, do we have a chance to win it all now with this group? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, even if you maybe aren't 100% confident, but you're like pretty confident that you could win a World Series if you just get in, then you have to go for it. And guys that become untouchable, like you have to be willing to move off of that stance.
You have an opportunity to win right now because Kyle Tucker, you may only have him on your team for a year. This is the 1 year that you have Kyle Tucker. There's no certainties about next year. You're getting, in the first half, you got a lot of guys outperforming expectations. What is Matthew Boyd going to have another all-star season like this? This has been a phenomenal season that Matthew Boyd has had. Carson Kelly's had a great year. This is the kind of team that reminds me a little bit of that Giants team that won 107 games, where you're having a lot of guys outperforming what, having a career year type year, or at least outperforming the median of their career. And I think you've got an opportunity with this National League wide open. The NL is better than the AL, but there's no dominant team right now in Major League Baseball. You're only 2 games back of the division. I think Milwaukee is a better team than you are. They've been much better club for the last 2 months. I think Milwaukee has been getting better. That Andrew Vaughn trade. Andrew Vaughn could end up being one of the best trade acquisitions of the season. It happened a month before the deadline. The Cubs needed to get better if they were going to compete for this year. I think there's a way they could have done that without. So there was reports, rumors that they were engaged in talks with the Nationals about Mackenzie Gore, and that those trades they would have had to give up Matt Shaw, maybe Owen Casey, like a big haul.
Yeah.
All right, back off of that trade. You don't have to give up Matt Shaw. I wouldn't give up Matt Shaw. In fact, I'd hang on to him. I'd hang on to Owen Casey. But Ballesteros, like we said, he's someone that should be expendable. James Triantos, I love James. I think James is going to be a really good player. I think he'd benefit from a change of scenery and go to a place where he's going to get a chance to play every day in the big leagues when he's ready. I don't know. It was a weird set of circumstances. One other thing we need to touch on here, Michael. The Cubs extended Jed Hoyer. They announced the extension right before the deadline. I believe that this changed their approach dramatically because, and probably for the better. In all honesty, I still think that it was probably better that they didn't trade all those guys and go all in for the 1 year. I think there's a way you could do something in between where maybe it's, hey, let's try to go get Zach Allen or Adrian Hauser or just another arm that makes our staff better. That's, I think, what you do. Instead, or, maybe try to trade for some of those relievers that were out there. Maybe you beef up your bullpen, you go the bullpenning route. But with Jed Hoyer getting this extension, it changed things because I do fully believe that if Jed did not have any kind of certainty about next year, then he would have been putting all the chips in for this year. And that may have gone to a degree of like, man, we're actually hurting our future here by trading away an Owen Casey or a Matt Shaw or guys that are going to be really good for us in the future. Instead, Hoyer's safe, and I think we saw a much more conservative approach. If he was fighting for his job, then he can't worry about the future. Those guys are, he might not be here when they come up to the show.
That's a good point. I think you're definitely onto something there. And I wonder if Cubs ownership said, okay, we want to get a deal done with Hoyer to have that in place. So maybe he doesn't,
yes, I think that's very much what happened here.
That because the Chicago Cubs have not operated like they play in Chicago, one of the top U.S. markets. Like they just have not operated that way over the last few years, since Theo was there running the show. So it's definitely weird. But yeah, you bring up a great point because there are some other GMs and president of baseball operations, whoever the lead decision maker is in these front offices, that are somewhat on the hot seat, like AJ Preller. A lot of people were talking
not
about
on the hot seat. No,
I mean maybe not anymore.
But he manages like he is, and he's not.
Right, but that's the thing. Like how many times has he swung some big deals and it just hasn't led to that playoff success? The farthest they got was the NLCS a couple years ago. So maybe he's operating like, okay, even if I'm not on the hot seat, which I think some people still thought he was, then go out and be aggressive. Jerry DiPoto is another guy. Then in Seattle, Mariners fans were for the last couple of years not happy with what they did at the deadline or in the offseason, the lack of spending money or bringing in top tier talent. So this year he goes out and he gets two big bats. They're both rentals, but they're big bats. Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez. I mean, that's huge because that's a team that's built to win in the postseason because they've got elite starting pitching. They have multiple elite weapons out of the bullpen, and they have a core of star players already in that lineup. So you bring in Suarez and Naylor, and you couple them with Julio Rodriguez and the big dumper Cal Raleigh and Randy Arozarena, and all of a sudden that lineup is 5 or 6 bats really, really deep.
Yeah.
You don't want to, like as an opposing pitcher in the playoffs, you don't want to see that lineup.
100%. I liked what Seattle did. I'm a big Josh Naylor fan. He's one of those guys that I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he's somebody that I fear when runners are on base. Like I don't want to, Josh Naylor, we got guys on the corners and we got Josh Naylor coming up. He's going to clear these bases. I don't want to pitch to him, but I have to.
Yeah.
I love what they did there. They bring Suarez back. Suarez was also apparently an awesome clubhouse guy that they all loved in Seattle. So they kind of corrected a wrong there by bringing him back home to Seattle. And that race, that's another opportunity right there where you're gaining ground on Houston. This is kind of similar to what Seattle's a little similar to San Diego, where both those teams were down. Seattle was down like 7 games less than a month ago. Padres were down 8 or 9 games less than a month ago. And now Seattle's 2.5 back at the time of this recording. San Diego is 3 back. This is what you do. You go for it. And Houston's had a lot of injuries. Houston probably overachieved a little bit, too, in the first half. And like you said, they have such a great pitching staff. That's where the fans are like, we're wasting this awesome pitching staff. We got to do something. DiPoto goes out. He gets 2 guys. I like what they did a lot. They're definitely a winner.
Yeah, and I remember back when we did the recording talking about the offseason, making playoff predictions for this year, I was really high on the Mariners. I think I had them going to the ALCS when we made those predictions. And it wasn't all about the roster they had in place. It was a lot about the roster they had in place, but it was me thinking, all right, with the pitching they have and, the core group of bats, a couple names that I already threw out there, like they've got to add to this. And when they do add to it, that team's going to be even more dangerous. So I think about what wins in the MLB postseason, what we've seen the last few years, the teams that go far, and especially the teams that win the World Series, they've got at least two dominant starting pitchers that can shut things down and go
Yeah.
deep into postseason games. You've got to have two or three shutdown relievers, and you have to have a core group of position players that can beat other teams with the long ball. That's what wins in the playoffs. Dominant pitching, strikeout stuff, and then offensively, a deep lineup, but a lineup that you can rely on guys to hit home runs. Not necessarily live or die by the homer, but you've got home run hitters. And now Seattle adding two home run hitters in Suarez and Naylor to a group of players that already hits a lot of home runs with Raleigh and some of those other guys, plus the pitching. Like that's what wins in the playoffs. And they're set up really well, even if they get in just as a wild card team. You figure in a 5-game series, they match up well against anybody. But if they win the division, they set themselves up in an even better position.
Now, Houston made a very big move of their own, and this was probably the two things that shocked me the most. Three things that shocked me the most on this deadline day. Number one, Mason Miller trade. Number two, the Cubs inactivity, and probably Dodgers inactivity too, for that matter. Number three, Carlos Correa coming back home to Houston. The Twins were in fire sale mode. They traded away 10 guys, so that's 40% of their roster. I mean, they just blew the whole thing up, burned the house down, starting over. They punted on the Correa contract. They're eating about a third of the money, $33 million of the remaining $103.42 million per Bob Nightingale through 2022. So Houston has done this move similarly before 2 years ago. The precursor to this was they did not re-sign Justin Verlander, and they traded for him at the deadline. Now Houston does the same thing. Carlos Correa coming back home to Houston and playing a new position for the first time in his career. This is the first time he has not played shortstop. He's their third baseman. What do you think of this move?
I thought it made sense on both sides. Like for Correa, who clearly was a little bit fed up with the situation in Minnesota, as were a lot of their other veteran players. If he was going to leave, he said the only place he would go was back to Houston. That's the only place he'd waive his no trade clause for. And for the Astros, it's a big deal when you can bring in a guy who's been there before, like legitimately been in that clubhouse, winning a World Series with Houston. Like it's the same thing with Suarez in Seattle. You bring back a guy who's been there before, so it's not like you're wearing your a name tag as you walk into the clubhouse, meeting your new teammates for the first time. Like there's familiarity there. So as soon as that guy's penciled in the lineup, he's wearing his jersey. Correa's wearing the Astros #1 jersey again, even if it's at a different position. Like you just slide him right in as if he never left. And Suarez, maybe it's a little different because he wasn't, World Series champion in Seattle. And there for as long as Correa was in Houston. But when you can bring a guy who the fans already know and love and is familiar with the organization, the coaches are familiar with him, that makes things so much easier because there is it takes a little bit of time for guys to get acclimated for their new situation, and it's not a lot of time to do it down the stretch run. So I thought it made sense on both sides. I think even from an intangible perspective, you bring back a guy who all the reports are that he's a pretty good, at least on the field leader. I don't know anything about what he's like in the clubhouse, but from an on-field leadership perspective, he brings a lot. And, maybe him moving to third base at this point in his career, maybe that saves some, maybe not necessarily prime years, but close to prime years because it's a less grueling defensive position.
Yeah. Let's power rank. Where does this Houston, Seattle, this is a super interesting race out west, and Texas Rangers are 4.5 back, by the way. Seattle's 2.5 back. These races are really tightening up across the league. Let's power rank these division races in terms of most interesting. Could be interesting to you, but for any matter. So where would you go with this? What's the most interesting, the least interesting for you?
Okay. Most interesting, the least interesting. I think the most interesting division race to me is the NL West, because I
Yeah,
think
I got
something
them all
about
too.
that Padres Dodgers rivalry that continues to intensify. Like there's something special about that. Like it's more of a new school rivalry that continues to get better, and there are so many star players on both rosters, not just star players that you know if you're a fan of one of those two teams. It's like star players that everybody who's a baseball fan knows. So that's what I think is cool about that. So I'll put that as number one, especially because the Dodgers were, coming into the season, everyone's like, oh, they may challenge the all-time season wins record with how loaded they are. So I'll put that one number one. I think the NL East is an easy number two for me. I can argue that's like a 1B, but I'll put it at number two because Mets Phillies, that's another two big cities with really loyal, diehard fan bases. And the team that wins that division is going to, you figure, have themselves set up a lot better than if they've got to go play a wild card series. I think it stays tight. You've got two teams that made big moves adding to their bullpen at the deadline and were aggressive trading prospects. So I'll put that at number two. Number three, I'm going to go AL West with the Mariners and the Astros, and maybe the Rangers sneak back into the picture because they did buy at the deadline as well. But that's exciting because it's new. You know what I mean? Like it's two, maybe three organizations that don't quite have the diehard following, or like maybe the casual following from baseball fans. If you're a fan of one of those teams, yeah, but nationally, not many people necessarily care on that level. But I think it's cool because it's unique. Like it's a lot of it's three teams, two with that third being the Rangers, that are similar in a lot of ways, and it's going to be tight the rest of the way because nobody wants to quite take hold of it. After that, I'll say the AL East with the Yankees, Red Sox, and Blue Jays, just because again it's more powerhouse teams, especially having the Yankees and Red Sox involved. But I think there are some more fun races. Five, I'll go with the NL Central, Cubs, Brewers, and then six, I'll go AL Central, which again, that's at this point it's not much of a race, but the Tigers haven't been as dominant as they
Yeah,
were early, but definitely that one's definitely last for me.
I think there's a case in each division that someone else could win it than the leader, and I include the AL Central in that. And the reason why I wouldn't have said that 3 weeks ago, especially when the Guardians just kind of limped into the break. They went on a winning streak. It may have been right before the break, but they lost 10 in a row. It seemed like it was over at that point. But then the Tigers came out of the break. I think they lost six straight. Cleveland, though, that's a really interesting situation. I guess we should probably touch on Luis Ortiz, Emmanuel Clase. Their lockers have been cleared out, reported by Zach Mizell from The Athletic, who Zach, of course, is a big Survivor fan, so we've had some good reality TV discussions out there at Goodyear at spring training, like Zach a lot. But this sports betting probe, Luis Ortiz, Emmanuel Clase, their careers may be done. They could be banned for life. There isn't too much that we can add to that other than that's obviously a big distraction and something that could demoralize your club. But Cleveland has been fighting. They've been hanging in there a little bit. So I don't know. We'll see with that
Uh,
one.
I'm surprised that they've hung around this long because things just haven't quite gone right for them this year.
Yeah.
It started with, of course, just getting out of the gates a little bit slower than they would have liked. Shane Bieber, they dealt with that injury, then they go trade him away. In the offseason, they shipped off Josh Naylor and Andres Jimenez, two starters on a playoff team. That's always a tough look, and they weren't even making that much money. But I'm of the opinion that there are no small market teams in Major League Baseball. Like, just because you're in a smaller market, you don't have to act like it because all these owners have money to spend. Some just choose not to. Um, so for a team like the Indians, like they can't afford things like this to happen, like this issue popping up with Emmanuel Clase more than anything because he's one of the best relief pitchers in the game. He's got a desirable contract that other teams would want in a trade to take on. And then when something like this happens where he becomes untradeable and also unusable for your own roster to try to help you win games. Like the smaller market teams can't afford that as much as maybe like a Mets or a Dodgers or a Yankees. I mean, because there's less margin for error. So that's a tough scene. I mean, the videos that are out there, and the numbers talking about, hey, Class A rarely misses this far out of the zone, or when he misses on a first pitch, it's usually not by much. But on these first pitches, they were nowhere close. And same thing with Ortiz. It's definitely a tough look from a potential gambling scandal scenario.
So I would have that one. I would also probably have that one sixth. I would have I'd probably go. I think I'd go AL East fifth.
Okay.
Because I just don't. I mean, Toronto's good, but none of those teams. It's kind of been a matter of, I know Boston's playing well, but they really did not play well earlier. The Yankees are not playing well. The Rays have kind of slid out of the race. So I haven't been. It's not like I really want to. I'm dying to watch those teams. That would probably be five for me. Central will be sixth. I think I'll surprise you here. I'm actually going to go NL East fourth.
Ooh.
This is a testament to, I think, these top four. These are all like super compelling, interesting races, and there's a little bit of regional bias because I'm from the Midwest. But I think that's a good race. I'm not denying it. The reason I put the Central at third is, while I actually think that this race, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say the Brewers are going to run away with it. I'm not saying that this is over. I do think the Brewers are going to win this one. They're 2 games up. They're playing so well. The Cubs both of the games they won this weekend against the Orioles, a demoralized Orioles team, by the way, that just traded off parts. They barely won 2 of those games. One of those they won on a walk-off homer from Justin Turner. The other game they won 1-0. They haven't been pummeling those bad teams, and I'm expecting the Brewers to pull away. But while I expect the NL East race to be closer, this kind of Brewers story and their dominance over the Cubs is just so interesting to me as a story. And let's go back to, I pulled this up the other day. Ever since the Cubs and the Brewers met in game 163 in 2018, they tied for the division lead. They played game 163. It was at Wrigley. There was a passing of the guard. The Cubs had a really nice run there, 2015, 16, 17. They have not won a playoff game since then. The Brewers won that game at Wrigley Field. They have won more games in every season since then, aside from the COVID season, than the Cubs. The COVID season is the only year that the Cubs had a better record than the Brewers. So that's, this is 7 seasons now we're looking at. This is the 8th year. Brewers are 58-43 over the Cubs during that time. The Brewers have only one of those 7 years. Now this is the 8th year. The Cubs have won the season series, and the Brewers have done this with a fraction of the Cubs' payroll.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this concept, as somebody who read Moneyball and also read the book about the Rays that Jonah Carey wrote a while ago, this concept and these baseball things, that's just super interesting to me. So that's why I would have that one at 3.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I'm a little surprised that you had the NL East that much lower than where I did. I had them at, 2. You had them at 4. But that's what's so cool about baseball right now is that there are so many tight races. 5 of the 6 divisions look like they're going to come down to maybe the last week, even if a couple get wrapped up with 2 weeks left in the season. Like, it's coming down to September baseball in 5 of these 6 divisions. So that's what's cool. So I'm curious to hear the top 3 for you, because I feel like you're going to throw me for a loop with one of these.
Well, that's 3. The Central's 3. The NL East is 4. Number 2, I've got the AL West. You got 3 teams vying for multiple playoff spots, but obviously they're all going for that division title, and they're all close. And we've had close races in this division. We had this basically same scenario 2 years ago. It was super interesting. And the number 1 is the other battle out west, and that's the one that you have. And I agree with you. This Dodgers-Padres thing, it's a rivalry. These teams do not like each other. What's funny about it is Dodgers fans often refuse to acknowledge this as a rivalry. They're like, oh, yeah, no, we're above the Padres. Our real rival is the Giants. This thing's growing, and I think you
Yeah.
have to. Sometimes it's a matter of not just storied opponents, but it's the now. So, for instance, I don't think the Bears Packers is like this awesome all time rivalry. It's like, okay, those are two storied franchises. Yeah, the fans, they don't like the other team. I'm not saying it's not a rivalry, but I think like Steelers Ravens is a way better rivalry because those teams just hate each other and they beat the snot out of each other every time they play, and you don't know which way that's going to break. And this is a rivalry. While the Dodgers have been the team that's been more dominant, the Padres beat them in the playoffs in 2022. They almost beat them last year. There was obviously a lot of tempers flaring in that playoff series, and this is why I'm not a big fan of the current scheduling where we have more of a quote unquote balanced schedule because we have less rivalries. When teams play each other more, they like each other less. And I would like to see the Dodgers and the Padres play each other 50 times instead of watching the Dodgers play the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, what's cool about the Dodgers and Padres rivalry is that like they are in the same state. They're in the same part of the state, Southern California. Yankees Red Sox, yeah, it's always going to be one of the best rivalries in the sport, but they're in two separate states. And I'm not using that against that rivalry. I'm just saying that the fact that the Dodgers and Padres are so close to each other, that makes it that much better. So when you've got two teams separated by, what is it, less than 2 hour drive in the
Yeah.
same state, in the like kind of trying to take control of, that region, like that's pretty cool. And I think what's also cool is the fact that both organizations have done such a good job of generating big leaguers like from their own farm systems,
Yeah.
and they've supplemented it with big time free agents and trade acquisitions from elsewhere. And both organizations have done a great job of bringing in talent and then retaining talent. And it doesn't have to be just a homegrown team or just a team pieced together with trades and free agent signings. Like they've blended it well together, and they've brought in guys that mesh well together, like high energy guys, stars that attract fans coming out to games. And they've both kind of embraced like, yeah, we hate the other side. And that's what's great for baseball, because when you've got two teams whose ownership spends, they draft well, they develop well. Like it's kind of like a blend of success in so many different areas. That's so awesome for the game, because that's what creates a sustainable rivalry. It's not like the Padres are just going to be around for a couple more years as this dominant, and the Dodgers are just going to be around doing this for a couple more years. Like this is going to just keep getting better.
Well, it also helps that Arizona waved the white flag, and I don't know where that organization's going. I mean, Zach Allen is probably going to leave as a free agent. They traded Merrill Kelly, Corbin Burns, Tommy John surgery. They've really they've really disappointed. And this year they raised the white flag. They traded their corner infielders. They traded Merrill Kelly, and I don't know. I mean, it's going to be I don't know what the future is for that org. The Giants also waved the white flag too. I mean, they're still hanging around. They're hovering. They've got a chance. They're six back of the final wild card spot. I don't think they're going to get there because currently you got the Padres in that last wild card spot, and I think you and I are projecting them to be better over these next 2 months than they were in the first 4 months. The Mets and the Cubs seem like pretty safe locks for the postseason. Cincinnati, they're 4 games out. Do you think that there's any chance? I shouldn't say chance. Do you think anyone's going to squeak into this postseason outside of who's in right now in the NL?
I mean, just looking at the standings right now and looking at from the trade deadline what some of these teams did, or maybe some teams that are looking to bring hurt players back, that's almost like getting another trade acquisition, bringing those guys back in. I don't think so. I was high on the Reds coming into the year. I just don't think they have enough there. It comes down to star talent late in the season. Of course, it also comes down to which teams get hot. But like you've got to have stars to really push yourself into the postseason and then win in the postseason. And right now, the Phillies and Mets loaded with stars. Out west, the Dodgers and Padres loaded with stars to like a pretty incredible degree. And then the Central, the Brewers maybe don't quite fit that bill because they're piecing it together with a lot of guys, people that the casual baseball fan doesn't know who they are, and that's fine. It worries me a little bit once they get to the postseason. And then the Cubs, they've got a mix of some younger players helping out, some veteran pieces, and some current like star top tier names. So, yeah, I just think the six that are there right now, I think with as tight as the races are and some of the upgrades some of those teams made, I don't think we're going to see another team sneak into the fold.
The only way that we do, or I shouldn't say the only way, but the situation that's most likely that could produce another team, pay attention to the Cubs series this week because they play the Reds at Wrigley with Mike Soroka on the bump tonight. We'll see how that goes. And then they go to St. Louis. And this is a Cubs team that again, they're slumping right now. They're not scoring a lot of runs, and there's not a lot of wiggle room for them with the Brewers. Now, they have seven. They're up 7.5 on the Reds. For that reason, I'm not too concerned about the Cubs. It would be a catastrophic collapse if they missed the postseason at this point with under 2 months to go and a 7.5 game lead. But I'm just saying, I'm not saying I expect this to happen or anything like that. I'm just saying the situation in which it could get interesting is if the Cubs got roughed up by the Reds and or the Cardinals this week. So if the Reds were to go into Wrigley, which is unlikely, and sweep the Cubs, now you're looking at 4.5 between those two teams. And then they have to go to St. Louis, and they're not playing well in St. Louis. Both those teams, this is such a critical week for both those teams because the Cubs have an opportunity to just bury them and really end their season. Like if the Cubs were to sweep the Reds, now they're 10.5 back. 10.5 of the Cubs, but potentially 6, maybe 7 back of the Padres. Like you just lose a lot of ground that you have very little time to get back. Same thing with the Cardinals. They're 6.5 back. But, again, you could game 3 games on the Cubs if you were to rough them up. So that's the only situation where I see one of these teams gaining some ground and getting in. I do feel that the teams we have in the NL playoffs right now will be the teams that we will see in October.
Yeah, and
I feel pretty confident of that.
In other years, it'd be like, okay, really? Like we're barely in August, and the 6 teams that are slotted into playoff spots right now are going to stay that way, and be like, that's boring. But when you look at the fact that all 3 division races are separated by 4 games or less, like that's what's exciting. It's not about which teams are going to sneak in. It's like what spots are they going to grab? Like, are you going to win the division and be, and get yourself a bye, or are you going to fall to like a 5 or 6 seed and then have to play on the road in a wild card series? Like that's what's exciting about it. So I think that's what we're going to see play out.
And the Cubs and the Brewers play a 5-game series at Wrigley 2 weeks from now with a doubleheader and everything. That's going to decide the division.
Yeah, and especially with a doubleheader thrown in there, like you figure it's hard to sweep a doubleheader, especially at the big league level. So you figure that game ends up being a split. It's very possible that one team sweeps, but probably a split. So who shows up in the other games and takes control? Like I think that's really what could end up playing a big role in who wins that thing.
All right. Anything else from the deadline? Any other bold predictions or takes?
Not necessarily bold predictions, but a couple trades that I wanted to throw out there that I thought were some sneaky under the radar moves. Right now, I'm not sure what's going on with the Rangers. They've had a really weird season. Like at times they've looked like, oh, this is the Rangers that, we saw win a World Series a couple years ago. At other times it's like, what is going on? Like they're just dysfunctional. But I really liked some of the moves that they made at the deadline. I liked the fact that they brought in Merrill Kelly. Didn't have to give up a lot because he's on an expiring contract. But when you can acquire a guy who can slot into the middle of your rotation, give you quality innings, go deep into games, and also with postseason experience, he's pitched in a World Series before. I think that's a really under the radar move because not a lot of starting pitchers were moved at the deadline, and they got a guy with playoff experience who can still throw quality innings, for a postseason team. And then I liked the move for Phil Maton. He's been a guy that I've really liked the last few years. It seems like every year he's on a different playoff team, and he's a guy that you trust in big spots in postseason games, like high leverage innings. He may not be your ninth inning guy, your eighth inning guy, but he can come in and be a stopper in the sixth or the seventh, whether it's in the middle of an inning to clean something up or start an inning fresh and then bridge from your starter to your back end high leverage guys. Like, I thought that was a great move. And, there was that rumor that fake rumor that the trade that was announced that Adolis Garcia was getting shipped off to the Mets. I'm glad that didn't happen because the fact that they kept him, like, this is if you're trying to get into the playoffs, you don't trade something like that. So I'm glad that was a fake rumor. So I like what the Rangers did in terms of trying to beef up the pitching, both in the rotation and make the bullpen a little deeper.
Yeah, Merrill Kelly move reminds me, it could be similar to the Jordan Montgomery one from a couple years ago, where Merrill Kelly, I just think of him as a workhorse, and he's been pretty good in the postseason. We saw him 2 years ago. He did a pretty good job in that postseason. Speaking of, Jordan Montgomery, actually, this is a noteworthy one. He got shipped over to the Brewers. Basically, Brewers are eating his contract for the rest of the season. He's a free agent at the end of the year. And they get Shelby Miller. So they add to their bullpen, which is, an awesome bullpen already. And then I started thinking, I'm like, man, are the Brewers going to do the same thing where they're going to revive Jordan Montgomery and they're going to sign him next year to a 1-year contract and he's going to pitch awesome and then he's going to get paid again?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little shocked that I was shocked that the Brewers just only did that and made that move for Montgomery and Shelby Miller, but also the fact that the Brewers of all teams were willing to just take on a contract because that's not something that a team like Milwaukee would normally do. They'd go after the guys who are on more team-friendly deals or an expiring contract where they're not on the hook for a lot of money. So that was interesting to me, but it's very possible that's a pitching factor. I mean, you look at what Milwaukee has done with reviving arms, Cleveland, Seattle, Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
It's been really impressive what Milwaukee's done. I did want to throw out, I can't forget about the lefty, Danny Colome, out of the bullpen. Another guy the Rangers picked up, another shrewd move that they made. So that just adds to my point about the Rangers. I really liked some of their moves as they try to work their way back into the mix.
Yeah, I like what they did too. Coming back to the Brewers, because I can't shut up about the Brewers apparently. I think the reason why they didn't add more in terms of position players, because I don't really think they needed to add more pitching. Like, their pitching is so good. They could add another bat.
Yeah.
But they may have made the best trade of the season with this Andrew Vaughn trade. Andrew Vaughn, 19 games with the Brewers. He's batting .373. He's got a .429 on base, an 1,100 OPS, 1,130 OPS, 6 home runs, 24 RBI. He has been so good for them, and the price they paid was Aaron Savali, who refused to go to the bullpen.
Right. Yeah, and again, the reason it's flown so under the radar is because it happened in June. But yeah, you're right. I mean, former first-round pick, elite talent.
It was like third overall pick of the 2019 draft.
Yeah, just needed probably a change of scenery, and yeah, I mean, absolutely star-studded move by the Brewers. Yeah, a couple more I'll throw out just to wrap up that I liked. I won't go too into detail. I liked the Tigers picking up Charlie Morton. I thought the Tigers overall should have done a little bit more at the deadline.
Yeah, I agree.
It went more all in because you've got Tarek Skubal in his prime as the best pitcher in baseball. Capitalize on that. But I like the addition of Morton, makes the rotation deeper, and he's pitching his best baseball right now, like late in the season, and he knows how to win. Got a couple rings, World Series experience. Thought that was a really nice move for a young team. And then I love super utility players because they fit on any roster. And I think the move that the Cubs made to grab Willie Castro from the Twins, I think that's going to work out well for them because it gives them just a little bit more flexibility with a roster that, like we talked about, they didn't quite go all in, but they've got a piece that fits in a lot of different ways there.
Yeah, it was one depth piece, but they still needed to do a lot more. And
Yeah.
I mean, the thing I don't really understand is they don't have great depth. Like they probably should have given PCA more days off up to this point. Ian Happ is not having a good year. I think you could make that switch right now. Most Cubs fans would sign on for give me Owen Casey out there in left field. I mean, you've got some of these guys in AAA like Ballesteros. Maybe use him as a pinch hitter here down the stretch.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to roll out Justin Turner and John Birdie and Vidal Brujan was the other one that these guys were not really giving you much off the bench. So Willie Castro definitely adds to that, but I don't know. Maybe they supplement that from their farm system. I'm just so confused by why are you hanging on to these prospects but not giving them opportunities to play? That's what I just don't get.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy to see. I mean, we had contenders separate themselves, and, a few teams put themselves from contender to now legit World Series contender. And then some other contenders went from contender to, yeah, like it would be cool to win, but clearly isn't our main priority, or we think we can win with what we have. But when it comes to the playoffs, like you have to add at the deadline, and you got to do it in a big way. Um, doesn't always have to be the best name out there. You make 5 trades and completely mortgage your future, but the best organizations know how to thread the needle and balance the present and the future and the opportunities at hand. And I think it's pretty clear to see which teams did that.
He's Michael Marcantonini, the voice of the Aberdeen Ironbirds. Michael, what are you working on right now, and how can people follow along, get in touch with you, and be up on all the stuff you've been putting out there?
Yeah, right now working on tying the bow on the 2025 minor league season. A little bit more than a month left in my third full season with the Ironbirds. So just looking to enjoy calling Birds games the rest of the season. Keep having fun doing what I'm doing, putting out some content, interviews, things like that, and just continuing to like we all are trying to get better every single day. And for following me on social media, it's at Miked Up Sports, at MIKED Up Sports on X/Twitter, whatever you call it, Instagram, and TikTok. So you can check out my play-by-play broadcasting, my interviews, and all different kinds of baseball and sports-related content on social media. But like I said, Jack, just having fun doing what I'm doing, calling games, and just enjoying the journey.
Living the life. All right. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your time today, pal. Always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
Thanks again, Jack. Always good talking ball with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. All right, y'all. That concludes our conversation today with Michael Marcantonini. Fun talking MLB Trade Deadline. We'll have plenty more content coming soon, so make sure you guys are all subscribed to the channel. We'll talk some more baseball, and NFL preseason's getting going. I'd love to talk some football here soon. Maybe an NFL preview, maybe a college football preview too. Make sure you guys are all subscribed to this channel. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Jack Vita Show Sports. I have another podcast called Jack Vita Show Entertainment, where I cover reality TV and television shows. You guys can go check that out. But if you want the sports content, it's Jack Vita Show Sports. At Jack Vita Show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We'll have plenty more content coming soon. Until then, I'm Jack Vita. Bring in the dancing lobsters.